Hey, good evening, everybody. Sorry I'm laughing, but you'll find out in a minute. Tonight I'm going to show you how to make meatball stroganoff. Now, some of you may recognize this as something that's got hamburger in that can help you. Okay, so I'll slip by that as a copyright note violation, hopefully. Alright, so first thing you want to do with this is get your meatballs ready. And this meatball recipe is very versatile. You can swap out the dill that I'm using in here, because it's stroganoff, for like Italian seasoning with the rest of the recipe the same, and then you can make like a really good spaghetti sauce, which I'll probably do some other time, but let's get to this. Yeah, this looks really busy, so here's the list of ingredients. Now for this, you definitely want to control the fat, so do get extra lean. And if you've noticed, I've started with the gloves on right away, because you'll be getting your hands right into this. I put 1 to 2 teaspoons of dill. I like a lot of dill, so that's looking like a lot of dill already. So why don't I just dial it back, so 1.5, but that's what I mean, however you want. Garlic and onion powder. This one, do not put more than ½ teaspoon each, it will just overpower you. Okay, your panko. Now if you can't get or don't have panko, if you're going to use regular breadcrumbs, use the fine ones for this. Last but not least, the egg. The egg acts to bind it and keep the meatballs together. So get your hands in there and just start squeezing and turning. Once you have that evenly incorporated, you'll start to feel the mixture seize up on you a bit. It's going to start to get stiffer like dough. And this is the egg getting into the breadcrumbs and kind of mushing them up. And it's all starting to bind it, so you can see that it's like one piece and it's not going to fall apart on you. So when you get to this point, you can start making your meatballs. And you can just squeeze off a comfortable handful of the meat, so you're not like having that go everywhere. And what you do is you just squeeze off, drop it, roll it, go again. Now, honestly, those last two are a little too big. I prefer these smaller, about this size. Yeah, I'll just redo those first two. And you can do that, eh? You can just like jam them back in and start again. You'll get practice with this. The smaller ones, well, first of all, they cook better because of the larger surface area, and also you get more meatballs. So, as normal, cut the ends off your onion down the middle. Now, because it's small, you definitely want to just capture the outer layer, because you're going to lose way too much onion if you peel off the whole thing. Okay, so you want a really fine dice for this. I mean, don't stress on it, but, you know, if you can. Start the onion off in about a tablespoon of oil on about medium heat, a little higher. Okay, so just get those spread out while you start cutting the mushrooms. Clean the mushrooms if you need to. Some people might be thinking a pound of mushrooms is too much. First thing I should say is mushrooms cook down surprisingly well into a much smaller volume. But if you really don't want that many, you can cut it back to ½ pound. I wouldn't use less than ½ pound of mushrooms, because you'll just lose the character of the dish if you do that. And again, to give character to the dish, you don't have to slice all of these super thin. You do want to leave some of them rather thick, so it gives kind of like another meaty layer to the dish. So don't worry about how you're slicing them, pretty much. Yeah, the onions started to sweat, so I'm going to add the mushrooms right away. Now just put these in by handful at a time. if you tilt the cutting board, it's just going to go all over the floor, okay? Now, while I strictly do not add salt to this dish, what I do is I will take literally a pinch of salt. I'm using the Himalayan because a pinch of salt is enough to start to get the water out of the mushrooms, which is what you want. So once you've mixed that up enough, yes, do cover this. Just pop a lid on that, and that will help to bring some of the water out. I just heard some sputtering noises, so that's a good sign. Oh, yummy. So what you want is you want the water to come out enough that they're not all hard, and you also want a bit of crispy that you can see there for that extra, like, umami or whatever they call that stuff, right? But you don't want them to be all dried out, okay? So this is just about perfect. Now, so instead of starting my pan from scratch, whenever I'm transferring any kind of food, it's a trick I have, turn the heat right to low if you're working gas. If you're working electric, you can turn it right off, no problem. And I have a clean bowl here. And I'm just going to transfer all this to the bowl. Try not to cook your hand over the burner, even though it's on low. Okay. Ow. Alright. So, back to the pan. And just get your meatballs and pop those in. Now, be very gentle with these because they're so soft. They can mush in a minute. I don't really try to roll them up again, but it's kind of like you're throwing dice or something, you know? So turn it up a bit. Not too high, because when you saw, if there's already browning on the bottom of the pan, anything else you put after will cook quicker. Okay, you got to keep this in mind. You can't do the same heat. It's sort of like if you ever deep fried, the second batch goes quicker. It's something like that. Because if you do turn up the heat too fast, the rest of the thing will burn. So I'm going to leave this right at medium. I do want to cover this for a minute to get the meat to set quickly by keeping all the heat in the pan. And I'll finish them uncovered. Again, I heard a sizzle. So, gently, yeah. So just kind of give these a toss without popping them out of the pan. Not that I've ever done that in all these years. That's why I never do that chef flip thing, okay? Because it looks really impressive, and most people don't show you the dinner going onto the floor, okay? So this you want to keep basically just want to cook them on both sides, okay? But you don't want to cook them so far that they're dried out, because you are going to be reheating these in the sauce later, and you want them to be all the way cooked through because you're not going to have that much time. Alrighty, now those are looking just fine. I'm going to very carefully transfer them to the mushrooms, and surprise, I am not going to clean the pan because I'm making supper later, but not that much later. It's still going to be good, and I don't want to lose all the flavor in the bottom. Now, if you're going to be making supper like 8 hours later or something, sure, by all means clean the pan, but I'm going to be making supper in a reasonable amount of time. So I'm going to let that cool off on the stove. Take the pan off the burner so the crust stays nice but doesn't burn. And when this is cooled down enough, I'm going to transfer it to the fridge, food safety, and then I'm going to bring this back out when I make supper. Okay, time to make dinner. I've got the water boiling. I got a pack of these egg noodles. You can use a different type. These take 10 to 12 minutes, which is just perfect because when the noodles are cooked, the sauce will be ready. Just pop those in, give them a stir. You're going to be right at the stove the whole time, and just keep an eye on the noodles so they don't overboil. Get the can of consommé open before you start the sauce, because this is fairly delicate timing and you don't want to start messing around with can openers while your roux is cooking. So just get a couple of tablespoons of butter. I've been doing this long enough I can just estimate. It is about that much. Use your tongs to kind of pick up those nice stuck bits at the bottom. This has only been on the stove for about an hour, so there's no harm to this. Like I said, if you are going to do your prep in the morning and cook at night, yes, clean the pan, otherwise it's fine. And you can see all that brown goodness start to come up. Once the butter is just melted, do not let it brown any further. I measured the flour, mix that in. Turn the heat down to medium, because you definitely do not want your roux, that's what this is called, to burn at this point. So when you've mixed in the butter and flour as well as you can, kind of just spread it out for a little minute, and just, yeah, you can use a spatula like that. Just wait for it to bubble up. So what you're looking for is, I'll just zoom in there so you can see it. When it starts doing little like fizzy bubbles like that, let it just do that for about a minute, and then you're going to put your consommé in. Pour in all the consommé at once. Pick up any flour on the sides. Try to get all that stirred in, and with the spatula feel around the bottom and try to scrape up any bits. I always use silicone tongs for this because I don't want to scratch my non-stick. Just get a can of water, and if you are using prepared broth, 500 or 600 mils should do it. At this point you're safe to turn up the heat a little higher, not too hot, because you want the sauce to form before you add the sour cream. While you're waiting on that, stir your noodles again. Make sure they don't stick. There you go. So you can start to see the bubbles in the sauce, and you can start to see the color change. That's a good sign. So you can just stir that a bit, let it sit a bit longer. Alright, so the sauce, as you can see, has come to a boil, and it's starting to thicken up nicely. So make sure you just stir that up so there's no lumps and it's not sticking on the bottom. When it's reached that point of full boil, get your sour cream. You can add this all at once. And you're going to turn down the heat a bit. Again, I did turn it up to speed up the sauce. So now just very gently, kind of just squeeze the sour cream with the tongs. And it looks like a mess right now. Not to worry, that'll change in a minute. And it looks like you got, like, you know, sauce with cottage cheese in it. That's when you get your meatballs and onions, because all of these will break up the clumps of sour cream in short order. And then you just start stirring around like that. Yeah, what you do is just stir in little circles and just go bring in the chunks from the outside and just let that simmer while the noodles finish in a couple minutes. This is why it's important to cook all the meatballs thoroughly at the beginning, because you're not looking to cook anything at this point. You're just looking to essentially reheat it. As I noticed, there's little bubbles coming up in the sauce. The sauce is starting to boil. You don't actually want this at full boil. So, but the noodles are ready right now, so this is like perfect timing. Just drain the noodles. I'll skip the sink shot for now. Yeah, so just put some of the noodles in the bowl. Always remember to turn your heat off. And just serve it up. And again, how many people you're serving depends on you. I don't think this is probably going to stretch to more than 4 people or 2 really hungry ones. I don't know. So there you have it. That's how I make meatball stroganoff. It's fairly cheap, quite easy to make, and it tastes excellent. Okay, so thanks for watching. Hope to see you again. Bye-bye.